Hey, colleagues. Welcome again to another discussion on our discussions that we've been having. These have been taking place in person at a certain day, a certain time, and not everyone is able to be there at the certain day and the certain time. So this is just kind of a quick recap showing some of the resources that we talked about. And I'll try to reflect some of the comments that either we had on that day or that I've had with other people during that time. And I will give you some resources because I'm Mary, I'm your librarian, and I love to give resources on everything. All right, let's dive in. Today, we are talking about intersectionality in education. And if you feel a little confused, yeah, I'm kind of with you. I feel a little confused on this topic. So definitely, I never hold myself out as the expert. That's not me. I'm just good at finding things for you. So I have found some information here that we can all browse today. We're going to look at really quickly, but then you can browse yourself in a little bit more detail. So what is intersectionality? And I'm going to keep saying in the classroom, but of course I mean in the advising office, in the accessibilities office, in everywhere else that you are going to be. But it's the idea that your students and you and your colleagues and everyone you know, none of us are just one thing. We all contain multitudes. Honestly, it's why we're kind of awesome. Genuinely, it's one of the things that I find most interesting when I'm talking to people. You find out all the cool things about them. But again, a lot of your students are maybe young or maybe inexperienced at being in the world and doing their own thing so far. And they are discovering different aspects of themselves that maybe they didn't even know about. And so when you're working with students, you know, understanding that students do not identify as just one thing. And it's easy, and I will say this as somebody who taught for a long time, it's easy to just identify them as you do good work, you do not do good work, and I don't care about anything else. That that is not awesome teaching. That's not awesome being a person. So it's interesting to not only kind of identify, but then help your students to feel maybe a little bit more confident in all of their different aspects. Take some time to think about you and where do you fit in. I like the nice wheel. Yeah, and just to think about where are your powers and privileges and where do you feel weak? And I don't, for me, I feel like when I do that, it does help me identify with some of my students and see some of the things where they might feel weak, but some of the things where they also feel their own power and their own privileges. And so, I mean, I have lots of post-secondary education. I was born white. I was born a citizen, but I have some hidden disabilities that I don't really like to chat about always, but cause me problems and make me have issues at work. I identify in different areas out here. I identify here. It's difficult. It's difficult to understand what makes a person a whole thing. So when you're talking in class, remembering your students have a bunch of identities. And scrolling down now, uh, how can you include that in a classroom? Well, a lot of this is kind of the same thing that we've been talking about. I know you've talked about in your department meetings, you've talked about in other kinds of teacher training. So I'm not going to dwell, but the idea that, hey, if every person that you talk about is exactly the same kind of person, that's a problem. I've taught management for many years. It's a problem in that professional area that when we talk about management theories and the history of management, it is almost exclusively rich white men in Europe at a certain time in history, and then some bleed over into the United States. And that's pretty much it. And nobody else's management experience is really discussed. And I will say it took me a while to realize that. It took me a while to realize, oh, every time I read about the history of management theories, it's these same 10 guys. And I mean, interesting. And yet, I just bet that in the entire spectrum of human civilization, there were more than those 10 guys who thought about management. And hey, there were. So when you're thinking about how what you bring into your classroom, be really be really purposeful about saying, yeah, and so here is I can't think of any scientist. Here is this scientist who was awesome and did cool things, was autistic, brought that to their work, and look, made things even better. That would be kind of a fun thing to say. Um, I'm sorry, I'm not giving good examples, but if you read through some of this other material, they will give you better examples than I will. Just being able to recognize that kind of intersectionality. I, again, and I'm saying this as a person who I feel like I was not, I always tried to be a good professor. I tried to be a good instructor. I tried to be a good person. Be a good person is not really enough. And it's easier when you've been teaching for a while, I think, to just kind of sum up your students quickly. But I think we're better. I think we're genuinely, I mean, not just in like a nice way, but we're actually better instructors. We're better at working with our students and however you do it when you do realize all of the intersectionality of their lives and what they're bringing to your classroom. There's no such thing as just being able to hang all of your baggage and your background at the door and walk into class, and now we're doing this, and then on the way out, we just pick it all back up. Come on. You don't do that. I don't do that. Your students are not going to do that. Um, Acknowledging different aspects of students, making them feel comfortable. I don't know if you want to sum this up by don't be a jerk to your students. Go ahead, but that's not wrong. And that is often my summation. But there is more that you can do to kind of help students feel confident in their different kinds of identities. I think one easy thing you can be doing is saying, oh, well, in the last video, we talked about LGBTQIA students. In different videos, we have the semester, different discussions this semester. We have talked about working with students who have different ethnicities, different races, different cultural backgrounds. Great. We have organizations here on campus that deal with a lot of these types of identities and help people to feel confident in them. I mean, we have not just again, I hate when people say politically correct, so I will not, and I will frown dismissively at you if you do it in my presence. But if you want to be polite to people, that is definitely awesome. And keep in mind that some of these identities that students will bring to your classroom are not just, oh, I'm going to choose to be a good person to my student, but in fact, federal law requires us to do things. So when you're thinking about accessibility and students who have different kinds of disabilities, again, whether you can see them or not, I I am your librarian, and I have at least two kind of hidden disabilities, and I have to work with them every day. And yeah, it's tough. So don't make life harder on your students, whether their disability is right there in the open or not. This is your responsibility to help them and make sure that they feel comfortable, they feel confident in your classroom because your whole purpose is to help them learn things. Your purpose is not to stand in front of a class and talk. Anyone can do that. It does not take skill. Teaching, making sure the students are connected, making sure that when they leave this place, and I'm pointing to the wider world, when they leave this place and go out into the wider world, that they're like, yeah, I know me. I know things. I'm smart in this subject area. I'm ready to do more. That's teaching. Well, now I feel kind of inspired myself, so maybe you do too. Okay, and then our final article, and this is from a really well-known database, and figuring out your place, helping students to figure out, yeah, where do you belong? What works for you? what are all the different ways that you identify? What can I do to make sure that I bring those identities into this classroom? What can I do to make sure that I bring those identities into the work that we do across the college? What can I do to make sure that students know that I'm there and that I'm ready to support them? I'm just going to say there are a bunch of ideas. You can see this is a long article, a lot of resources. And hey, maybe you're saying to yourself, gosh, Mary, you've been vague and all over the place. I would like better resources. Thanks for asking. I am good at finding better resources. So this is our library catalog. I did just an unbelievably, I mean, garbagey search, but I typed intersectionality college because then I get things that are here. And I said education because we're all interested here in education. I got 1,861 results. I'm looking at the first 50 or fewer. I mean, I'm not the boss of you. Look at what you want to look at. But within the first 50 is where you're going to want to be. So this is a book. And in fact, it's a book that the first two items are the same book. I don't know why it does that. It's magic. Here we are. And I can click on that and I could read the whole book if I really felt wild and crazy, or if I just felt like just reading one chapter, fabulous. Just read the one chapter. Here's an article talking about the experience of Latinas, African Americans in rural education. And I'm sort of waving my hand here, and this isn't really rural, but I don't know. It's not rural. I mean, we're definitely rural adjacent. So maybe this is helpful and useful. So a bunch of different things, gender equality in higher education. If everyone you see in positions of power in your school or your area of the world all look exactly the same, that's a problem. Yeah, let's see. And I'm sorry, I'm just kind of scrolling down quickly just so you get a feel for all the different things. Oh, I mean, I didn't even talk about, I mean, different kinds of disabilities, different kinds of issues. If you have a student in your class who has anorexia, bulimia, other kinds of eating disorders, I mean, I'm just actually going to wave my hand and just say, you do have somebody in your class who has eating disorders. It doesn't matter where you are and what you're teaching. That can be an issue, and it's going to be something you're going to want to address in a useful kind of way. All right, this was quick, but we've kind of been talking about a lot of these things all semester. If you want topics and information about specific resources, please come find me. I'm available and I will help you find something that is useful to you specifically, your class specifically, and your content specifically. We're all here to help our students make sure that they do good, they have success. So if I can help you, please let me know. I'm here for that. I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.